I'm not deep into Lipscomb just yet, but anything on our group, I'm wide open with.
Recording in progress.
I guess so. I guess I'm curious. I don't know what the arrangement with BJ was. Maybe when spring football starts here in a couple of weeks, has that maybe changed just because of this of your depth? I'm wondering along with that, where are a few guys who are down right now? I guess do you have timelines for when you might get them back in the outfield?
So Lamalure's close. He took batting practice yesterday, and the intensity of batting practice and even the stuff we do in the cages with the machines is pretty intense. But the adrenaline and the effort in a game, I think, naturally is different. So we're being cautious there. I'm going to meet with the football guys on what is best for BJ and our situation and him and them. This is part of the glamour of the two sport athletes, and what I think makes Florida State unique is it's been a part of our history, and how to manage that is important to both programs, BJ in particular, and our lineup. So I'm gonna talk to the football staff, and we've been trying to manage that. The last couple of days has clearly been pretty busy for me, and I know they're getting close to ramping up for their spring practice. So we'll sort that out. And I don't know that Chase Williams he's not a factor this weekend. Now, not as bad as it might have looked coming off the field. Bladen Plain is not close yet. And those are three guys that we thought would really factor in. And you look at the capabilities. If you are full strength, it's pretty dynamic. Just looking at the outfield personnel, including BJ and Max and Gage and Delamalure and Plain and Chase. And we've been working Miles Bailey in the outfield. He played more outfield than he did first base. Really hadn't played much first base. So we're thinking through all of our options, including how this looks for BJ moving forward. I don't have a concrete answer on that yet, but it is something that's clearly on the radar screen.
Coach, I'm not sure how much you're allowed to publicly comment on this yet, but with Florida State settling with the ACC, could you take us through what impacts that could have for your program, both short and long term?
Since that came out, Michael and I talked in the dugout actually before the Tuesday game. I honestly haven't had enough time to really dig into that. It seems like it is a win-win-win for everybody, and I think we're in uncharted waters in college athletics, and how to create revenue for individual athletic departments and conferences. We're in a new era of this, and I think the fact that Michael saw the potential in this and maybe what was coming and had the courage to step out in front of it and try to do what's best for Florida State and the ACC and all of the teams involved. It sounds like this is a win-win for everybody, and some of it is built on the programmatic success of the programs and the visibility that does create. So there's some layers to this that I haven't quite had a chance to dissect yet, but I'm so proud of Michael and President McCullough and the board for stepping out and trying to do what appeared to be right for our athletic department and the conference visibility and financial stability overall. So seems like a win-win. I keep saying win-win-win. There's a lot of people that stand up to benefit from this, and it did take courage to get in front of it.
Coach, I'm going to try to only ask you this once a month moving forward, but any updates at all on Cam Leiter?
It's a long rehab, and I wish I could tell you that this looked like he was going to pitch. I can't tell you. I know it's a long rehab, so it's going to be a challenge for him to be in a position to actually jump out there and pitch until we're at the very end of this. And when you're talking about these ramp ups, there's a calendar that's laid out. But how this goes along the way and in the intricacies of what a throwing program looks like, Like there could be bumps in the road where in any rehab you may have to repeat a week, or you may have to repeat 2 weeks, or you may have to pause. So I wish I could tell you, and I wish I could sit here and say, hey, we get to the end of it, he's got a chance to factor into this. It's hard to say. So you can ask me, and until we get now, he's out there throwing, but we're just in the early stages of this, and there hasn't been a malfunction or a setback, but the runway to that plane taking off is like we've just turned the taxi and started down that long runway. So we're not there yet. I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer, but if I did, I would probably be a medical professional. Like you just can't answer these things because there's so many unknowns and there's so much time.
Yeah, well, not trying to hassle you about it, Coach. It just, people are curious about it. So I didn't want, just don't want to pepper you with it. Just want to give you a heads up. But I'll maybe limit it to once every 2 months. But
no, it's fine. Like I wish I asked myself, do you know what I asked myself throughout the course of the last 2 years in terms of if he was available for us, what this might have looked like for us? I mean, I think about it every day. And then clearly you think about what he's gone through. Like that kid fought to get back to pitch for us at the end of the year. And I remember the feeling he had when he realized it wasn't going well. This guy likes to compete as much as any pitcher I've ever been around. So it's hard. And he looks back to the what if last year, and you look at our team and the what ifs down the stretch of having a guy that had earned the Friday night spot in the rotation. And now you think of what if right now. And I do think of the what ifs. I think of that for him and his future. This is a lot he's gone through 2 rehabs, one to try to get to the point where there was no surgery, and then that didn't go well. That's hard enough in itself. And now to have the surgery and try to rehab through that, the feelings are deep, and I feel bad for him. And, I do wonder along the way, like if he had been healthy, what would this have looked like?
I don't think you've had to pitch any of your starters past 90 pitches so far, 13 games into the year. Just how much that has to do with the longevity of the season, but also the depth that you guys have in the bullpen behind the starters.
It's absolutely both. It's both. You get to a point to start this where Micah does a beautiful job of laying out what a ramp up template looks like. And some of this dates back to what these pitchers did last season. Some of it involves what they did over the summer, what they needed in the fall from us in terms of development. So you're talking about probably an 8-month study on what is best for each guy in terms of the ramp up, and then what is the responsible way to increase the pitch counts. And these are young guys. I mean, they're college dynamic pitchers, but they're still, in terms of what we hope their careers look like long term, they're on the front end of that. So being responsible to their long-term outlook is important. And Micah and I do think about that, and we think about it a lot. I think we're getting to a point where you can see these things starting to extend. Micah nor myself were comfortable really trying to push that beyond where you've seen it right now. We will need to do it, but pivoting to your next point of having some depth in the bullpen, that is a comforting situation. And if you unpack the depth in the bullpen, there have been days where we may have had a package of relievers available on one day, and then another package of relievers available the next. And we don't even have the other ones in consideration. And we've kind of potted the relievers, which is very unique, but it keeps everybody fresh, and you're not pushing people to the point of overuse or uncomfort and maybe frequency in a week of how many times they're on the mound or how many times we're even getting them hot in the bullpen. So I like where our pitching is. Now, everybody on the staff has areas they can improve, but I think that has been the strongest part of our game so far, is just the quality of the starting pitching, and then the variety and the number of guys that have been relatively effective coming in behind them.
using Mason as extensively as you did last night, I imagine might burn him for the weekend. Was that just kind of what you thought was needed in the moment? Was that maybe lining him up to be the first guy out of the pen on Tuesday? I guess what was the thinking behind he threw, I think, pushing 40 pitches?
Yeah, he threw 50-51, which is kind of the capacity that we had on the card for him if needed yesterday. And you probably sense my bitterness last night and the inability to put these games away. Well, there is a distinct need to win that game last night, and it was not in control. Bethune-Cookman was on it. It seemed like there was more quality contact in the game last night. I hand it to them, a variety of arms, and they damaged us a little bit. So we kind of got him to the point of this is what, if needed, we were comfortable with, and he did it. The previous question on the bullpen depth, you feel okay now if he is out for a couple of the weekend days. Do I like that? No. We have to kind of evaluate how he feels, and he's a physical kid. He didn't throw 92 pitches. He threw 50. So what does that feel like as you count, the day's rest and kind of a number of pitches? I mean, maybe he's available on the back end of the weekend if needed. Maybe he's not. But we had guys not even in play last night that are now back in play. Some pretty good relievers. So that's where the depth helps you. And we knew Manka was not going to be an extended look, but we thought him starting the game for his own warm-up and just the feel of getting into the game without any traffic was the best way to use him. But then it probably, in terms of duration, Mason kind of carried more of the load of what you would have thought out of a starter. It was just how it worked. And Mason, he pitched great. He changed the game for us.
Coach, you've mentioned a lot recently not being real happy with the quality of at bat. I know it sounds kind of obvious, but for you, what does a quality at bat look like? And then what are you guys trying to do to improve on that right now?
Well, it starts with the pitch selection, and the pitch selection is guardrailed by what approach you're trying to use. And we ask those guys to go up there with a pitch by pitch approach, and some of it is based on like how they're seeing the ball, what they feel. And there's 5 or 6, 7 things we really work on with the approach. It's a pitch by pitch thing. There are at bats where we're trying to do nothing but manage the timing and the rhythm of the fastball and still having boundaries with the fastball. There's times the hitters try to time the fastball and then adjust to the slower secondary type pitches. Less than 2 strike hitting is our hitters feeling that they're in total control and trying to do some significant damage. Not out of control, but pitch selection allows you to do damage if you're getting good pitches to hit. And clearly, like we saw our guys do more damage against our own pitching staff than I have so far this season, which is a little unusual because I think the quality of our own arm has probably been a little better and deeper than maybe what we have seen. So then you go to are we trying to do too much at times? And I clearly see that. So if you're trying to adjust to the secondary pitches and you get one, but it's not really in a spot or you didn't feel good about your timing of adjusting to it, you have to be able to shut that swing down and take it, even if the pitch is a strike, less than 2 strikes. That's where the problems are. And fouling pitches off and chasing some pitches in less than 2 strike counts makes you susceptible to the strikeout. When you are in the 2 strike counts, now you're a little bit more defensive, and we try to cover different things. The boundaries are clearly different. I don't think the 2 strike hitting has been as disappointing as maybe the less than 2 strike hitting. Each guy starting back into the fall has a set of drills that we thought would help their actual swings. And those guys work on that before practice. before games. They kind of have their own sequence of things that they try to do to obviously, as you do that, you're also warming up before you ever step on the field for batting practice. And we use the machines in a very detailed way to try to simulate game pitches, not quite at game velocity, but close to that from a slightly shorter distance, but yet the trajectory of the pitches is actually very similar to what you'd see in the game. Why we haven't taken some of that into the games, like I actually saw us do in the preseason, we were far more damaging this preseason than we were last. It wasn't even close. And that tells me it's in there, but coming out of the approach a little bit and expanding and not staying in the hunt of what you're trying to do with your pitch selection is where I think some of the holdback at the moment is. And there are guys in the middle of the lineup that have to recognize being in the middle of the lineup, it cannot change how you do it or who you are. You just have to go execute your game, and the rest of it will take care of itself. So I think it was that way for me at times. If I saw the 3-hole or the 4-hole or the 5-hole by my name, sometimes you think that you're expected to do more. That expectation can result in less. So settling and not worrying so much about maybe where we're hitting and what's going on. That's how I see it. And we're trying, and we work with those guys, and Ty and Brad, they are in there with those guys right now. And we'll get there. The capabilities are there. The balance in the lineup is there. We don't have all the personnel and the options. So, when half your outfield is down, it does change the options, and it changes the DH option. So it's a lot of info, probably more than you signed up for, but there you go.
Yeah, Coach, that was a lot, but it's awesome. When we spoke to Miles like 2 nights ago, I think we asked him about just how he's been able to grow so quickly, and he said that he's never had an approach when he stepped into the batter's box before he got here. Like, he would just mash the ball, but now he's got an approach that you guys have kind of instilled in him. How do you go about getting the buy-in that fast? How fulfilling is it when you see a kid that comes to you that is that raw, but it buys into your vision and implements it?
Well, it's the best part of this for me is watching these guys grow into their potential. But the neat part about coaching at this level is there's so much growth, strength growth, physical size. Like, these guys are not done growing. So when you add in all of the work that they do in the weight room with their conditioning, all of this that kind of helps mature the athlete in general at this level, then you combine some of the mental pieces to it. I look back over the last 20 years of this, and I marvel at some of the movement of the needle in terms of just the overall growth, power, batting average, on base, management, maturity, base running. I love it. Like, that's what I wanted to get into this for, was to see them reach their potential. And in some cases, like, take it beyond what they may have thought they could do. I don't know what James Tibbs or Cam thought they could do. But if you ask those guys, their junior, senior year of high school, Ferrer, Dingus, I can go back, like, not just here, Nico Cavadas and Preisner and some of the guys at Notre Dame, and Corey Kemp, Tony Kemp's little brother out at East Carolina, and Hunter Morris at Auburn, the Conference Players of the Year. That's what I like. I tell them, when I was a below average player here in the minor leagues, I did have a chance to watch the Todd Heltons and the David Ortiz and the Dante Bichettes and Larry Walkers and all of these guys that were physically so different. They were so different, and their swings were different. But when that game started, the common trait that I saw was pitch recognition, timing, a game plan. So even when I was playing, I was trying to file some of this away because I didn't know that playing for the rest of my career was going to be the ticket for me. I wasn't good enough. So what were these guys doing that separated them into being Hall of Famers from maybe some of the others that were talented players, but couldn't keep it on the track day in, day out. That's where the approach stuff came into play for me. So I started to separate, and it took a while, the swing part from what I saw the great hitters do, because all of the swings had unique facets to them. So relaying that to the players so that Gage and Lodis and Max and Fisher and McCulley and Wes, and just go to that they all have an understanding of what does it look like and feel like when you do walk up there with a plan of attack for pitch 1, pitch 2, pitch 3 of these at-bats. And that's kind of how I got to this point. And it's hard, like, to sell out for that in a game when you've never thought that way. It is a tricky dynamic for a young guy. Then after some months of doing it and at bats, and you start to see why this works against guys that can really pitch. If you don't have this against guys that can really pitch, you will get chewed up. And even at times, if you do have a good approach against guys that really, really can command multiple pitches and move the ball around, you still may get chewed up, but it gives you a shot.
Coach, I have a non-baseball related question for you. This Saturday is Coach Leonard Hamilton's final regular season game at Florida State. I know you weren't here for his entire tenure, but just for you as a fellow coach, but obviously FSU graduate, Tallahassee native, just what has Coach Ham meant to the athletic department and the athletic program?
The consistency in class and how he has managed his program and managed so many different eras of what it probably feels like to coach right now versus 5 years ago versus 10, 15, 20. He's fantastic. And we had a head coaches meeting a couple weeks ago, and he happened to come in and sit by me. I'm like, Coach Ham. He's like, Coach, how you doing? You got he's just fun to be around and relaxing and gets it. And I mean, to manage a program at this level, the quality he's done it, the way he's handled himself, the class, the character. I mean, I would give anything to be able to do it like he has done it. And he's a special human being and just a fantastic, fantastic coach.